They say storms bring more than thunder and rain. Sometimes they carry things you can't explain. Things that crawl in between the lightning, wait behind tree lines, and whisper from the dark when you think you're alone. I didn't believe any of that until that night, the night I got trapped on a rainy road, miles from help, and something found me. The rain started just after 7 p.m. I was driving back from a client meeting, already irritated that I had run late. My phone buzzed with a dying battery warning just as I passed the last gas station for 15 miles. I remember checking the map one last time, thinking I could cut through the back roads and save time. That was my first mistake. The shortcut took me off the main highway and into winding, narrow roads flanked by pine woods that clawed at the edges of the headlights like dark fingers. The rain came faster than expected, heavy enough that I had to slow to a crawl. Each drop sounded like gravel on the roof of my car. There were no street lights out there, no signs, just the road, the storm, and my gut telling me to turn back. But I didn't listen. About 30 minutes in, my signal disappeared. No bars. I wasn't too worried yet, just annoyed. The wipers struggled against the torrent, and I leaned forward, squinting at the blurry windshield. Then the headlights caught something, a figure, standing in the middle of the road. I slammed the brakes so hard I felt the seatbelt bite into my shoulder. The tires skidded just enough to make my heart jump. For a second, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. A woman, barefoot, soaked. Her long hair plastered her face. She didn't move, didn't flinch. She just stared. I rolled down the window a few inches. "Are you okay?" I called out. "Nothing." She didn't respond. The rain made it hard to hear, but I swear she opened her mouth, just slightly, like she was about to say something. Then she turned and walked into the trees. That was the second mistake. I got out of the car. I know how that sounds. Every horror story starts with someone doing something stupid, right? But in the moment, all I saw was a barefoot woman in the middle of nowhere during a storm. Maybe she'd been in an accident. Maybe she was lost. Maybe she needed help. So I grabbed my flashlight and followed her. The forest was thicker than it looked from the road. Every branch slapped at my jacket, and the mud swallowed my shoes with every step. The rain soaked through my clothes almost instantly, and my breath came in quick, visible puffs. I called out again. "Ma'am, are you okay?" No answer, but I could see her up ahead, just beyond the trees. Still walking, still slow. That's when I realized something was wrong. She wasn't walking like someone trying to get away or find help. She was gliding, almost rhythmically. The light from my flashlight caught her feet. They weren't touching the ground. That's when the flashlight died. Darkness swallowed everything. The kind of darkness that isn't just about the absence of light, but something else, something heavier. I froze, my breath loud in my ears. Then I heard it, breathing. Not mine, shallow, wet, just behind me. I spun around, waving the dead flashlight like a weapon, backing up blindly through the trees. And then, snap, a hand touched my back. Cold, ice cold. I turned and ran, not looking, just charging through the woods, smacking into branches, stumbling over roots until I broke through back onto the road, soaked and bleeding. The car was still there, engine running, but the passenger door was open. I didn't stop to check. I jumped in, slammed the door, locked it, and gunned the gas pedal. The tires spun in the mud before gripping and shooting me forward. I didn't stop driving until I found signal again, about 15 minutes later. That's when I noticed the smell. Wet earth, rot, and something else metallic. I glanced at the passenger seat. There was water pooled on the fabric, and a single muddy footprint. Facing me, I told myself I imagined it, that my mind was playing tricks, that I was tired, panicked, soaked. But when I got home, something followed me. That night, I heard it again, breathing, outside my window. A week later, I started waking up with muddy footprints at the foot of my bed. I thought it was over after that night on the road, but it was only just beginning. I didn't sleep that first night. Even after a hot shower and layers of blankets, I couldn't shake the cold. It was a kind of cold that went beneath the skin, something I felt in my chest and behind my eyes. Every time I closed them, I saw her standing in the road, the water dripping from her hair, the way she moved without walking. I kept telling myself it was adrenaline, shock, maybe even guilt for leaving her in the woods. But deep down, I knew something had changed. The storm had passed, but the air in my apartment felt heavier than before. I checked the locks on every door and window. Twice. I even left the bathroom light on. At 2:47 a.m., I heard the first sound. Not thunder, not traffic, breathing. Right outside my bedroom window. Shallow, slow, steady. I didn't move. I just lay there, frozen under the covers, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. The sound lasted for about 30 seconds, then stopped. I waited another hour before I finally worked up the nerve to check. I peeled back the curtain. Nothing. The backyard was empty. Still, quiet. But the grass directly beneath the window was matted down, like someone had been standing there for a long time. That was the first night. The next day at work, I felt like a ghost. I couldn't focus. I jumped every time my phone buzzed or someone tapped me on the shoulder. I thought about telling someone what happened, but what could I say? I think I picked up something on a rainy road, and now it's breathing outside my window. No one would believe me. That night, I tried to convince myself it had all been a dream. I turned on every light in the apartment and poured myself 2 fingers of whiskey. I left the TV on in the background. Something cheerful, something loud, and settled in for a long night. But by 3 a.m., I woke up on the couch. The TV was off, the lights were off, and the front door was open. Just a few inches, but enough for the cold air to snake in and raise every hair on my body. I stood slowly, quietly. My mouth was dry, and my legs felt like they belonged to someone else. I walked toward the door, each step louder than it should have been. When I got close, I saw something on the floor. A single muddy footprint. Inside, facing the stairs. I closed and locked the door, hard in my throat. I grabbed the baseball bat from under the couch and checked the entire apartment. Nothing. No broken windows. No sign of forced entry. Just that one footprint, slowly dry on the hardwood floor like a signature. The next morning, I checked the home security footage. Nothing. The feed cut off at 2:53 a.m., then restarted at 3:12. 19 minutes missing. For the next several days, it got worse. I started dreaming about her. Every night. Always the same. She stood at the edge of my bed, hair soaked, whispering something I couldn't hear. When I'd wake up, my throat would be dry and my sheets damp with sweat, and always, I'd find something out of place. Once, it was the front closet wide open, the coat hangers swaying as if recently disturbed. Another time, all the photos on my wall had been turned upside down. But the worst was the third night. That night, I woke up with my phone recording. It had been filming for 42 minutes. The footage showed me asleep in bed, still, quiet. Then, around the 28-minute mark, movement, a figure, faint, translucent, barely visible, moving across the far side of the room. Not walking, gliding. It moved to the foot of the bed. Then the image glitched, froze, for 2 full minutes. When the picture returned, I was sitting up in bed, eyes open, staring directly at the camera. But I had no memory of waking, no memory of moving. That was the night I decided to leave. I packed a bag, booked a room at a cheap motel on the edge of town, somewhere I could clear my head. Maybe it was the apartment, I told myself. Maybe the power outages, the stress, were messing with my mind. The motel was nothing special. 1 floor, flickering lights, the kind of place truckers stop at just long enough to sleep and forget where they were. But it was away from the house, away from her, or so I thought. At 11:22 p.m., I got a call. A known number. No voice, just breathing. I hung up. 5 minutes later, a knock at the door. 3 sharp taps. Then silence. I crept over, hard in my throat. The peephole was fogged up like someone had been breathing directly against it. When I opened the door, No one was there. Just a wet trail of footprints leading away from my door and disappearing into the gravel lot. That night, I didn't sleep. But I wasn't alone. Every so often, I'd hear tapping. Not on the door. On the mirror. I left the motel the next morning and went straight to a local historian's office. An older woman, dusty shelves, boxes full of things nobody had touched in years. I asked her if anyone had ever died near the stretch of road where I'd seen the woman. At first, she hesitated. Then she told me a story. 23 years ago, a woman named Evelyn Merritt disappeared during a storm. Her car was found abandoned near the woods. Doors open, keys missing. No signs of struggle. Locals said she'd wandered off. Maybe she was injured. Maybe she got lost. But her sister had a different theory. She believed Evelyn had followed something into the woods. Something that called her, whispered her name. They found her body a week later. In the trees, face down in the mud, mouth open like she'd been screaming. No cause of death was ever confirmed. Since then, several drivers had reported seeing a woman in the road during storms. Always barefoot, always soaked, always disappearing into the woods. She wasn't just a ghost. She was a curse. That night I went home. I didn't know what else to do. I turned off the lights, sat on the edge of the bed, and waited. If she wanted me, if she had followed me, then maybe I could end it. At exactly 2:47 a.m., I heard the breathing again. This time not outside, inside. I turned. She was there, in the corner, watching. Hair hanging like seaweed. Skin pale, bloated. Mouth open, dripping. She whispered 3 words. I see you. I didn't sleep after she said those words. I see you. She didn't scream them. She whispered them, like someone reciting a secret to a friend. Calm, soft, intimate. I don't remember reaching for the bat. I don't remember standing up or the sound of my own breathing. But I do remember blinking, and she was gone. No footsteps, no movement, just gone. The room felt heavier after that, like it remembered her, like it was holding its breath. I didn't call the cops. What could I say? That a drowned woman from a 23-year-old local ghost story had broken into my apartment to whisper in the dark? They would have strapped me to a gurney. But deep down, I didn't need proof. I already knew. This wasn't just a haunting. It was personal. The next morning, I drove back to the historian's office. I needed more answers, anything that could explain why this was happening to me, why she was following me, why it wasn't just some brief encounter on a stormy night. The woman there, her name was June, welcomed me in with wary eyes, like she could tell something was different this time. I asked her what Evelyn had been doing that night before she disappeared. She was heading to meet someone. June said, thumbing through an old binder filled with articles, police reports, and faded photographs. A man named Patrick Hallow, a surveyor working with the county. He was supposed to meet her out on the road where they were planning a new access trail. Did he ever show? I asked. No. Claimed his car broke down in the rain. Swore he never saw her that night. My blood ran cold, not because of the name, but because of the road. It was the same road I had taken, the same shortcut, the one I'd never driven before in my life. I asked June if she had a photo of Evelyn. She hesitated again, then pulled a small manila envelope from the back of a file box. When she opened it, the air in the room felt like it dropped 10 degrees. The photo was old, creased and faded, but the woman in it was unmistakable. The same long, dark hair, same narrow, searching eyes. She wasn't just a woman from the road. She was the one in my apartment, the one whispering in the dark. I asked for a copy. June agreed, reluctantly. As I turned to leave, she called out, "There's something else. About Patrick." I stopped. What? He died. A year after Evelyn went missing. Single car accident. Late at night. In the rain. Back home, I laid the photo of Evelyn on the kitchen table. I sat in front of it for nearly an hour, just staring. Every so often, I'd swear her expression changed slightly. Not in any visible way, but in tone. Less pleading. More knowing. I picked it up to put away, but something on the back caught my eye. A name, written in blue ink, barely visible through the years. Hallow, not Patrick, but E. Hallow, Evelyn Hallow, not Merritt. I flipped through my mind like a Rolodex, piecing together what I knew and what I'd assumed. Had I misheard June? Had she said Evelyn was meeting Patrick Hallow, or that she was a Hallow? I checked the reports June had given me. A copy of a birth certificate, a school ID. My stomach turned. Evelyn's maiden name was Merritt, but she had married Patrick Hallow just 3 months before she vanished. That night, I dreamed of the road again. But this time I wasn't driving. I was watching from the trees. Rain fell through the branches like tiny knives, and down below I saw her, Evelyn, drenched, barefoot, crying, walking in circles, calling a name. My name. Only it wasn't my voice. It was his. I was him. I was Patrick. The dream twisted. One moment she was reaching out to me, begging me to help her, then screaming at me, screaming things I didn't understand, until I did. You left me. You promised me. You let me die. I woke with blood on my hands. Real blood. Thin, watery cuts across my palms, as if I'd been clawing at something in my sleep. The muddy footprint was back, this time on the ceiling. I stopped going to work. I couldn't concentrate, couldn't talk to anyone without hearing that whisper in the back of my head. I boarded up the windows, disconnected the Wi-Fi, hid the mirrors, but she kept coming. Every night, she'd show up somewhere new, in reflections, in my dreams. Once, God help me, inside the hallway wall. I heard her fingers scraping the inside of the drywall, her voice behind the plaster, whispering like wind in a bottle. I began to wonder if I really was Patrick, if this wasn't just a haunting but a punishment, if I was some reincarnation of a man who'd left her behind in the rain. But I remembered who I was. My parents, my childhood, my life. Still, something didn't add up. The dreams grew more vivid. In one, I saw Evelyn from above, as if I were floating, watching her run through the trees. She slipped, hit her head, and lay still in the mud. But even then, she was alive, breathing. And then someone approached. A man. He didn't help her. He held her down. The next day, I dug deeper. I searched every online archive, every forum, every trace of Evelyn Merritt Hallow and Patrick Hallow. I even called in a favor from a friend who worked for the state records office. When he called me back, his voice was shaking. "Are you sitting down?" he asked. "Just tell me," I said. Patrick Hallow was never charged, but he was a suspect. Evelyn had filed a domestic disturbance complaint just weeks before her disappearance. And the police? They ruled it unrelated. No cause of death. No sign of foul play. But get this, Patrick's father owned the land where Evelyn's body was found. My mouth went dry. I hadn't just seen a ghost. I had seen a murder. That night, I returned to road. I don't know what I was expecting. Closure? Revenge? Forgiveness? But I knew she was waiting. The rain began again as I pulled up to the exact spot. The bend in the road just before the forest line. Lightning flashed, and there she was, Evelyn. Not terrifying this time, not whispering, just standing in the trees, watching. I stepped out of the car. This time, I didn't ask if she was okay. I just said, "I know." Her expression changed. Not sad, not angry, just tired. She turned, walked into the woods, and I followed. The air in the woods was thicker than I remembered. The same pine trees lined the path, but they felt different now. Older, watchful, like they remembered what had happened here, like they were waiting. Evelyn moved ahead of me without sound, not disturbing even a single branch. The rain, still falling in sheets, didn't seem to touch her. Her white dress, once torn and soaked in my dreams, now fluttered lightly with every step, as if untouched by the elements. I should have been terrified, but I wasn't. I was numb, because for the first time since that night, I wasn't running. I wasn't hiding. I was following. Somewhere behind the fear, a darker feeling had begun to surface, a sick, sinking recognition. that I was part of this, even if I didn't know why. She led me deeper into the forest than I had gone the first night, past rotted logs, half-sunken stones, and patches of mud that seemed to breathe with every step. My flashlight flickered, then died. I didn't bother fixing it. I didn't need to see her. I could feel her. After maybe 20 minutes of walking, she stopped. We stood in a small clearing, hemmed in by trees warped with age. Their trunks were blackened, scorched by time or something worse. In the center of the clearing, barely visible under the moss and fallen leaves, lay the ruins of an old stone foundation. I recognized it, not because I'd seen it before, but because I remembered it. The outline of a cabin. She turned to face me, no longer expressionless. Now there was sorrow in her face, and expectation. I opened my mouth to ask her something, anything, but my voice caught in my throat, because that's when I saw it. Another figure, behind her, just beyond the trees. At first, I thought it was Patrick, but then it stepped into the light, and I saw my own face. It wasn't a reflection, not a hallucination. It was me. Same clothes, same expression, but older, wetter, mud-slicked, eyes clouded with something ancient. My knees buckled, and I stumbled back. Evelyn didn't flinch. She just kept staring at me, and the other me, with a quiet, mournful intensity. The double didn't move. He just stood there like a marker, like a memory given flesh. Then Evelyn knelt and placed her hand against the moss. The earth responded. With a sickening wet sound, the ground gave way. Not much, just enough to reveal something underneath. A bone, long splintered, weather-worn. Then another, and another, not buried, stuffed beneath the cabin's foundation. I wanted to run. Every cell in my body screamed to turn around and get the hell out. But I couldn't, because something inside me had snapped. The dream, the name, the footprint on the ceiling. It wasn't haunting. It was inheritance. I drove home before sunrise, the rain never letting up. My hand shook the whole ride. I didn't shower. I didn't sleep. I just sat at my kitchen table, staring at Evelyn's photo. I started looking into the Hallow family. Not Patrick, his father, Edward Hallow. Turns out he wasn't just some landowner. He was a private contractor back in the 70s, owned half the woods in that part of the county, and he was never investigated. Not even after 3 women went missing in the same region between 1978 and 1986. All supposedly runaways. All dismissed, and all had one thing in common. They were last seen near the old logging trails, the same trails Evelyn used the night she died. The deeper I dug, the worse it got. There were whispers, rumors of a private cabin in the woods, a place where Edward would take women under the pretense of offering shelter, a place that was off the books, a place that never made it into police reports, because Edward Hallow was protected by money, by name, by silence. And then I found something I wasn't prepared for, a birth certificate, mine, adopted, born in the same town, transferred to a different county 2 months after birth, biological father, unknown, mother's name blacked out in the scan, but the case number matched the hospital record for Evelyn Hallow. I wasn't Patrick. I was her son. Everything inside me fell away. The connection, the whisper, the footprints, the reason she didn't hurt me, the reason she followed me. She didn't want revenge. She wanted me to remember. She had died, alone and betrayed, in the mud, and her child had been taken, hidden, raised under another name, in another place, by people who had no idea what they were protecting. I was a child of the woman in the woods. And now, she was calling me home. The next night, I returned. To the clearing. To the bones. To her. I brought a shovel. Not because I thought it would change anything, but because the truth deserves more than rot and silence. I dug until my fingers blistered, until blood mixed with dirt. And then I found it. Her ring. A simple silver band, tarnished by time. Inside, a name etched in cursive. To E, my light in the storm. P. I sat beside the shallow grave until the sun started to rise. The trees whispered in the wind, but I wasn't afraid. Not anymore, because I knew what I had to do. I called the police, told them I'd found human remains on my property line while hiking. I gave them everything: photos, names, records. They exhumed the site. The bones matched Evelyn Hallow. The cabin foundation matched property records owned by Edward Hallow. 2 days later, a sealed box arrived on my doorstep. No return address. Inside was a VHS tape labeled only Confession 1986. What was on that tape would change everything. I stared at the box for nearly an hour before I opened again. The VHS tape sat in the bottom like a rotting tooth. Black plastic, hand labeled with faded white marker. Confession 1986. No return address. No note, just that word. Confession. Who had sent it? The police? June, the historian? Someone connected to the Hallows? I didn't know, but I had to see it. I borrowed an old TV VCR combo from a neighbor, one of those dusty ones collecting cobwebs, in someone's garage. I hooked it up in my living room, heart thudding, every part of me knowing that what I was about to watch wasn't just evidence. It was a curse. The screen flickered to life. A static hiss, then an old wooden room. Panel walls. Dim lamp in the corner. A man sits at a table. Mid-50s. Weathered face. Pale eyes. Edward Hallow. He leans in, speaks slowly, as if the words weigh him down. If anyone's watching this, it's too late to stop it. But maybe it's not too late to understand. He clears his throat, rubs his hands together. My son, Patrick. He married her, Evelyn, but she knew things she shouldn't. She knew what I'd done. A long silence. I tried to scare her off. I told Patrick she was unstable, but he wouldn't listen. So I followed them. One night, storm rolling in, she walked into the woods. Thought she was meeting Patrick, but it was me. She begged, said she was pregnant, said it wasn't too late. I told her it was. He begins to cry, not loud, but a slow, broken kind of crying. I didn't mean to kill her. I just wanted her to disappear. He leans closer to the camera, but she didn't. She never left. The screen went black. The tape ended. But something had begun. That night, the storm returned. Thunder so loud it cracked the air in half. Rain falling so hard it sounded like it would punch through the roof. And then the familiar breathing. Not outside. Inside. I rose from the couch. No bat. No flashlight. Just me, barefoot, walk into the house I no longer trusted. She was waiting. In the hallway mirror. Evelyn. Only this time, she wasn't whispering. She wasn't dripping or screaming or flickering in and out of focus. She was smiling. Behind her, the figure of Edward began to form, slow like smoke taking shape, his face pale, hollow-eyed, his mouth moving, but no words coming out. Evelyn turned, looked at him, then looked at me, and then the mirror shattered. No impact, no stone, just exploded. The sound of a scream tore through the house, but it didn't come from Evelyn. It came from him. Edward's reflection twisted in agony, mouth pulled too wide, body unraveling like wet paper. And as he vanished, the light surged and died. Only Evelyn remained. She stepped forward, 1 foot through the mirror, into my world. And as I backed away, she stopped, lifted a hand, not to harm, to touch. Her fingers brushed my chest. Oh, the heartbeat she once knew. The heartbeat she carried inside her the night she died. And then she whispered, "You found me." The rain stopped. Not faded, stopped. Instant silence, like the world had been unpaused. She lowered her hand, stepped back in the mirror frame, now smooth and whole again, and slowly, the image of her face blurred, then vanished like breath on glass. I stood there for a long time. No more whispers. No more footprints. No more breathing in the dark. Just silence. Real silence. I turned the tape into the police. They reopened the case. Evelyn's name was cleared. Her death, officially labeled a homicide. The land where her body was found was marked as protected ground, and her remains were given a proper burial. I was there. Rain threatened all morning, but it held off. When the casket was lowered, a single crow landed nearby. It didn't call, didn't move, just sat in the tree until the last handful of dirt hit the earth. Then it flew away. I still live in the same house. The mirror is gone. I never hear breathing at night. But every year, on the anniversary of the storm, I leave a candle in the window, one of those old hurricane lanterns. And sometimes, when I wake in the middle of the night, I find the flame flickering wildly, even though the windows are closed and the air is still. Maybe it's nothing, or maybe she just stops by to say, "Thank you."